Welcome to Creative Living. I'm Max.
And I'm Amy. And today we're going to talk about the unlimited creative power that we all possess and that we all have access to. And I really want to talk about this because I've been speaking to a few writers recently who really feel like they've got one book in them. And a lot of people say that. It's like quite a common phrase, I've got a story in me that I have to tell. And which is amazing, it's beautiful, but I just want to talk about the concept that we have more than that one creative project within us to bring to life. We are not limited, we don't have just one story in us. There's no cap to our creative power if we want to truly commit to our practices, our creative practices. I think for writers in particular, because if we write novels or collections, it's very long form. So when you're in your novel, I think it often feels like this is all I have, this is all I can ever create, this is my potential, and I will never be able to do anything else at all. So today I just kind of wanted to talk about how that isn't true. That's a story that you tell yourself that will entomb you in a reality of your own making. And we need to realize that if we are open to it, ideas will always flow and we will always have access to doing more and more creative projects until we die.
And I'm actually going to add to that and say that on top of that, you also have no limit to how many different practices you want as well. So you could write and you could still act and you can paint and you can draw, and like we're raised, school teaches us that we have one destiny and one destiny only. When they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's not, what are the kinds of things that you want to do when you grow up? Or what are the careers that you want to have? Or what are the jobs? It's like, what do you want to be? Yes. One word answer. And, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be a cowboy or whatever. But we're actually raised to believe that we're going to have to just do one thing for the rest of our lives. And I think also that kind of mentality to break out of means that when it comes to whatever creative practice that you're in, you'll be able to think more broadly about the possibilities you have in front of you, whether if it's just within that craft, all the different stories you can write, or if it's outside of that craft, all the other things that you can do that complements each other.
100%. I love what you're talking about. Recently I was reading, oh my God, I'm going to correct myself. Recently James was reading and then he told me about a blog by Seth Godin who is talking about the gig economy. And so I think, millennials and people younger than millennials are often criticized for, not criticized, it's like there's a negative view on the fact that we have many jobs and we don't just have that one career. It's a gig economy. We get gigs. We go from gig to gig.
I like that.
And it's always portrayed negatively. But Seth Godin in this blog, according to James, was saying that it's a positive thing. It means that we are able to explore so many different things. We have an array of different practices that we can play within, and there's a growing permission for us to have multiple different practices that we enjoy and love, multiple different art forms, multiple different projects within our art forms, and there's just this release of these constrictions that we've had in the last 100 years where you only do one thing, which I think suits us as humans so much more. We are not one thing, we are multitudes of things, and we have the capacity to create multitudes. And so I think that's really important to recognize and to enjoy and be thankful for, that we, even though obviously the gig economy is hard, it's hard financially, and yes, we have been fucked over by the boomers, but we get to do so many things. And so I really like what you're saying, totally, yes, we can within our art form have Who is ringing you?
I don't know, but I'm mother. She
can wait.
Sorry, Mum.
Yeah, I really like that. So I think it's, there's definitely different levels. You can be a writer that writes many books and you can paint the shit out of everything as well. And you can do all the different kinds of practices, and within your practices you can have multiple different projects as well. I like to, and I think literally most writers, most creatives like to think of it as coming from a source beyond us, whether you want to see your creativity and your inspiration coming from God, the universe, your unconscious, the deeper self. there's this idea that if you connect to something beyond you, something that you don't quite understand, that there is an unlimited source of creativity, there's an unlimited amount of story ideas. The world hasn't got a cap on books to be written. It is literally infinite. There are so many things that you can create, ways you can create it. And if we make sure that we don't box ourselves in, make sure that we are connecting to something beyond ourselves to get these ideas to create more and more, I think that, you know, we don't need to feel limited in any way.
That was the best. Amie McNee, everyone. No, and I completely agree. Like when I started studying acting, like in my mind I was going, that's, you know, something that I'm interested in. I don't know if I'm like, I didn't have it in my mind that I needed to become like some Hollywood actress. I just really loved acting. And I wanted to learn more. But then on that journey, I learnt producing and a bit of editing and a bit of filmmaking and like all of these little things that contributed as a whole. And so now that I've come out, I'm actually more into film and I love editing and acting. I can bring my acting skills in when I need them, but that I've followed just my natural interests. Like I didn't tell myself, well, you know, if you studied acting, then you can only do that. Like I've just sort of followed my curiosity, and it only helps. Like the way, like with Amie, like, yeah, you're a writer, but you also have a pretty solid understanding of social media and marketing, and you've got like quite a nice backing behind you with that you've got the freedom to choose whether you want to go down the publishing road or if you want to go down the self-publishing road.
Yeah.
And we need to stop judging ourselves when we have some kind of interest that's just, you know, off to the side of whatever it is that we profess to others and say to others that we do, and to trust that those curiosities will actually end up complementing you and they can only help. And yeah, like when it comes back to your work within one practice, it's the same thing. Don't be afraid to try something new. Like you as a writer, you're talking about non-fic now as well, and like not to be afraid of stretching yourself. Growth. Yeah.
Obviously, you know, it's scary once you've, you know, consumed yourself in one practice or one genre or whatever you're doing and you think, yeah, I got this, to then be like, now I'm going to stretch myself and do something else. And, you know, there's fear that comes along with that. But you don't want to stay stagnant. You don't want to, you know, stay the same size that you are. You don't want to build walls around yourself to keep yourself small. That's martyrdom. That's you getting in your own way. So when those curiosities call that, you know, it's a completely new genre or it's a completely new practice or a new job or whatever it is, you know, you have to follow those curiosities because those curiosities lead to growth and lead to you becoming closer to, you know, your true self. And I think it's really important that we don't let the fear stop us from that expansion.
And actually on that as well, a lot of people say, like, there's so much online about following your heart, and it can sound a little bit corny and sound a little bit like generic and you hear it all the time, but that is following your heart. When there's a curiosity that you want to follow or there's something that you're interested in, that is following your heart. So don't judge your natural thoughts and wherever that pull is that you want to go, even if it's just a lesson where you're like, I don't know why I'm interested in this, but I am, or this doesn't relate to my craft at all, but I still want to, like, that's what you need to be listening to and following, because incredible stories can come out of it too.
Yeah, of course. Liz Gilbert talks all about this and like exactly what you're saying. Just following your curiosities. I think, you know, in mass media we're told, you know, you have to be passionate about that one thing and, you know, go for that big passion, follow your huge dreams, but following your little curiosities and that gut instinct to try this thing, try that thing is going to lead to magic.
Yeah.
And growth. Whereas following with like no other direction, your big passion, without questioning it, without looking anywhere else, you know, you're blindsided, I don't think leads to growth. I don't think it lets you expand. It doesn't let you be curious. It doesn't bring out the most amount of magic.
Which is why you need to be so careful when people say you need to pick a niche.
Yeah.
You need to pick, you know, your corner and stick to it and be really good at it. That's not always going to serve you in the long term. It can serve you in the short term, but
let yourself flow.
Yes,
you're ever undulating. And, you're changing, and you're not a stagnant being. We're not stagnant beings. Let your interests wax and wane, and follow that curiosity.
Yeah.
Pulled that one out our asses, didn't we?
Always.